Hench, bring us back. What up, Prime Minister? On Earth days, the gods smoke weed and call it high day. Roach blunts on New Year's Eve keeps me off the highway. Seeing drunk drivers crash landing in the ditch the way it shines. He just some things on that bitch. 1,000 a pop, plus the tree tore up the rag top. Not for his life, but for the car. I saw this fag drop to his knees praying. Blacks have messed up priorities. 34 plus years old, telling you to sitting on keys. Telling women to drop it like garbage on the corner. Or shake it like salt and pepper, but you're in church tomorrow. Praying to white Jesus, your breath smells like gin Seagrams. You're bathing in cause he died for your sins. If Jesus is a Jew, why does he have a Greek name? I'm asking you, why does the Pope wear a Jewish yarmulke? Things sound strange, this world is messed up. In diamonds and 2 earrings, black men are dressed up. Walking on the ancestors' blood and say it's a red carpet. Come around here playing your big and become a target. I bring it back to those days when we would threaten DJs, saying they're pro Toronto but not giving no airplay. Unless you're a rude boy speaking in Bacardi slang. No matter how much you email, they reply hardly, man. On November 06, I received an email about too much backlog. They didn't receive my tracks, but it shouldn't take that long. It's not 2-7, I haven't heard crime. But I heard Pretty Ricky talk sex about 50 times. I heard booty 20 plus times. Rims and censorships on every track. These slaves talk about so much whips. Who wants to be a blood, a sellout, or a crip? Sign the dotted line when you rhyme so you can rep that shit. That's what they tell you. To hell they'll send you. Dumb black energy is on the devil's menu. Cause you think it's physical, but it's all spiritual. No snow till January, crap off with rituals. Shines with Khalid Muhammad holding the AK. You would think I'm coming clean when my mind sprays. If I wanted to be with thought power, I say, with eyes closed in meditation, abracadabra or ashe. It's been years since I've been to a party. Drunk on chartreuse or coke with a party. Speaking the bounces and slurs, tripping over my words. Calling girls chicken, but still flip cops the bird. Stumbling around this concrete jungle. No more time, I took the oath and swore to be humble. Hey yo, I got them sick thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them hot thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them sick thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them hot thoughts to make you rise drastically. Hey yo, we bust the vortex like concrete to boots vortex. Listening to Floor 93.5 just gets me more vexed. But it's something I must deal with, like slavery and whites. Raping the black woman and man in the day all night. Stomping on babies to break loose mentally, they rape me today. It wasn't physical so far back in the day. That was only 500 plus years ago. Moorish shaman, not Zulu like Mutu Apredo. Scarborough, repping Scarborough since the Tobago. Call me legal, man, I turn charger from San Diego. No matter what your name is, you could be nameless. When you know your melanin self, our time is ageless. Our spiritual self is shapeless. But on the shelf, you got some hook nose like God outside of yourself. So-called or proclaimed by Nissi and picture. I'll get on our shoulders of warfield marshals and councils of bishops. Enough, that's just the side of us that'll make you hiccup. Just like unsophisticated driving us behind trucks hiccup. When I show slave pictures, stomach acid, you're gonna spit up. Make the devil drop to his knees and the God lift up. Hey yo, I got them sick thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them hot thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them sick thoughts to make you rise drastically. I got them hot thoughts to make you rise drastically. Yeah. Here we go, y'all. Yeah. It's lubricated. I ain't cheap. Kiss mama bye. I'm on the road to stardom. Turn back on the conscious road, no stardom. Just cause I'm an MC, I must be a fan. My faves growing up as Black Cam and Sham. Intrepid styles, brass tacks. The whole Flemo part, can't forget our tracks. Big Daddy KNC, Scoob and Scrap. Express myself like Ice Cube, no Raiders cap. 2CMP got me subliminally. Glancing through Dr. Ben books since 93. Paid no mind to that, into money and power. Shop and BB with giants, the top of the tower. Now I'm into crack and gats. Hats to the back in polo. Thanks G-Rap, Lord Finesse and Daddy IU fresh. Wanted Hirachis and Jordans with the mesh. Didn't self-destruct to get them, I just waited. Hearing Jeff transform as he cross-faded. Travel Fox and Buffalinos, suits of silk. Bumped into base court when I went to buy milk. He said no deal, I don't care like D. Leave that to me, she mom is my priority first. Heard Stop, Look and Listen, Love Light. Saw the Power album, loved Ice-T's wife. Digging through the crates, Diamond D, Master Ace. When 88.1 played Apocalypse and Ace. Deal with your case, LL kinda bad. Nowadays rappers show their chest cause they fag. Walls of posters, MCs and boasters. What's the boot camp crew chat before Escoshka? EFPMD brought Redman to me, Big L and Special Ed told me touch instead. Cause he dropped the 50 MCs, all my faves. I lubricate this to MCs that's now in the grave. I like to lubricate this to hip hop. The 5 elements under ish hop. Giving respect cause of you are made. Yeah. Here we go, y'all. Yeah. It's lubricated. I ain't cheap. Kiss mama bye. I'm on the road to stardom. Turn back on the conscious road, no stardom. Just cause I'm an MC, I must be a fan. My faves growing up as Black Cam and Sham. Intrepid styles, brass tacks. The whole Flemo part, can't forget our tracks. Big Daddy KNC, Scoob and Scrap. Express myself like Ice Cube, no Raiders cap. 2CMP got me subliminally. Glancing through Dr. Ben books since 93. Paid no mind to that, into money and power. Shop and BB with giants, the top of the tower. Now I'm into crack and gats. Hats to the back in polo. Thanks G-Rap, Lord Finesse and Daddy IU fresh. Wanted Hirachis and Jordans with the mesh. Didn't self-destruct to get them, I just waited. Hearing Jeff transform as he cross-faded. Travel Fox and Buffalinos, suits of silk. Bumped into base court when I went to buy milk. He said no deal, I don't care like D. Leave that to me, she mom is my priority first. Heard Stop, Look and Listen, Love Light. Saw the Power album, loved Ice-T's wife. Digging through the crates, Diamond D, Master Ace. When 88.1 played Apocalypse and Ace. Deal with your case, LL kinda bad. Nowadays rappers show their chest cause they fag. Walls of posters, MCs and boasters. What's the boot camp crew chat before Escoshka? EFPMD brought Redman to me, Big L and Special Ed told me touch instead. Cause he dropped the 50 MCs, all my faves. I lubricate this to MCs that's now in the grave. I like to lubricate this to hip hop. The 5 elements under ish hop. Giving respect cause of you I made it. Big up the Black Dot cause you helped us save it. I like to lubricate this to the DJs. I like to lubricate this to the dancers. I like to lubricate this to the MCs. I like to lubricate this to the graphers. With no positive influence, I love the like Carmen. All they do today is dances and collar popping. Won't guard and knuckle up, but quick to ice and grills. Today nursery rhymers by rapping Jack and Jills. Climbing up Stephen Hill to fetch a pail of water. Seeing girls dressed in, I couldn't be my daughter. Ladies first is what Latifah used to say. Play the dyke and set it off cause the queen is gay. Nasty Nas was a rebel to America. Coming through the main source causing hysteria. In this track I'm not gonna name them all cause they know who they are and I'm not trying to ball. Even if Jerry was ball, he's still God. You can't stop the prophet, Lord. Only woo I bought was lit with sword. Onyx in the headphone when I stepped on the ball court. Used to shoot a lot so they called me Trigger. Dunking on Euros when they called me nigga and thought. Even had a stint with Too Short and Tim Dog. When head was called Rim Job, Monolith and us battled at Notre Dame. We still fam today, and we don't owe the game, not a dime or a penny. No Henny for me, rappers a butter knife, I'm a cutlass machete. no self-destruction, I'll leave you alone. Extra terror action make you phone home. Rappers getting pissed off and grabbing the chrome. We all in the same gang, this ain't a game, man. Business as usual, still unfinished. The lights of hip-hop will never see limits. To the old school that turned new school mule, sold out the vets to be a new fool. I like to liberate this, the hip-hop, the 5 elements under hip-hop. Giving respect, cause of you I made it. Big up to the black dot, making helped us save it. I like to liberate this to the DJs. I like to liberate this to the dancers. I like to liberate this to the MCs. I like to liberate this to the rappers. Salute! Highest honors to the prophet. It's so real. I like this. I love how it sounds. Yo, we needed a prophet and one was sent. So from all our sinful ways, we can repent, make things better for the children out us. I know good citizens that got their hands cuffed by color of authority and color of law. We're not improper person, you're outside of law or outlaw. They might call you ruthless because you're acting like author and don't know what the truth is. Making claims you do, but caught in emotions, being parts of movements that lacks motion. Activity is nil, null, and void. Haven't mastered Earth, but you're cosmic and right asteroids. Waiting for the mothership, that's macabre. Thinking that the mother isn't also the father. Thinking that our son is the only one. Thinking young men are killed with only guns. We got it so twisted with pretzel thoughts. Talk big by yourself, but when you're in courts, pulled over by piggies, giving them jurisdiction. To kill a racist crack of talk is the purest fiction. All y'all do is talk it and don't walk it. Then claim it's racism and they made you forfeit. Throwing in the towel, moving your powers in skinny jeans when you hear or see the sirens. What's wrong with colored people? You're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually stakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. What's wrong with colored people? They're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually stakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. Talk is cheaper, action's cheaper. Thought you had the Molotov and street sweepers to kill pigs dead, I'm sure that's what you said. Cause from Panthers and Malcolm X is what you read. It got you nowhere and got them dead. Arguing rights in a black status shot in the head by your own people who took a check instead of nationalizing, deciding to work for the feds. Children hungry, but they're not talking that bread when making excuses. Why from A to Z? They say they never sold out, even though they hold out. Prophet said seat them in the back, don't get the old out. New Moors were on their way, but now we're here. Moors conscious, dress their best, not like rapping queers, selling their soul. They go to market their bodies on the auction block, red carpet. I'm speaking what's true, but hearing I'm rude, not true. Y'all are squares like a Rubik's Cube. Always asking who's this dude. I don't catch feelings. Why push pillars if you can't catch ceilings? Too much backdoor and under table dealing. Keep that up and I'll keep trading revealing. I keep eating rappers, MCs mealing. Fire I spit, got reptilian skin peeling. What's wrong with colored people? They're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually stakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. What's wrong with colored people? They're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually stakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. Astro boy, the cosmic, this may be esoteric, but who knows it will feel it. Who the cap fit won't wear it, and the fest fit speak it. If you have questions, ask for more. Stories make your mind explore. You're more than a black man. The caucus plan, destroy a nation. Consent to being black, so the power is fiction. The effects of the Inquisition. My brown hand holds my ink in position. Sell out, exterminate you quick from my existence. If you think you can't corner our resistance, instinct without thinking. I make it unbearable, think it unthinkable. Try to battle God who honors fine principles. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This I seek through my exodus. If I told you I was white, you'd probably say, who the f is this? Dictionary's not wrong, it's just your perspective. If the fountain says color, why you drink it? You just signed an agreement. Salute, salute. What's wrong with colored people? They're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually snakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. What's wrong with colored people? They're actually fake. The words I speak to vampires are actually snakes. What's wrong with black people? They're actually brown, saying they run this town but acting like a clown. Islam, Moors. Peace and love to all. We're here once again for Canaanland Moors class. If you notice, we're back on the old channel because the no stream ban got lifted. But now the other channel has stuff. So we're streaming again back at Canaanland Moors, the original channel, because can't stream on the other one because people keep complaining about stuff. Crazy. But you know, Allah's always looking out. So Islam to all the Moors who know what's good. Peace to you. Moors that know what is good, that know what is good. I'm guessing they know what's good. Right? Yeah, Moors now they're getting alerts. All of a sudden they start getting alerts now. Crazy. They're gonna try. Can't knock them. Can't knock them. We have to send a big shout out to all the Abyssinians. Peace and love to all the Abyssinians. You already know what's up. Playing the Ethiopia BS. So we're gonna put it on the record that Haile Selassie knew what was up. Put it on the record that he knew what was up. So don't pretend like when Moors talk, we're saying something different than everybody else who came to you. Saying nothing different. Same exact theme. Only difference is we have enough guts to say the M word that curls these people's blood when they hear. Makes them get very defensive when they see a turban and a fez. Very defensive. They don't care about no Rasta Tams and Kufis, and that don't mean anything. The real deal is turban or fez. Knew what was up. There's no denying. There's no denying. This is from a book printed in Ethiopia in 1967. No name. But it was printed by Artistic Printers Limited. in Addis Ababa. And this was a book that out here, the Rastas out here, this was, you know, like the Haile Selassie reference point book to prove how renowned he was. This was a book that when you received this book, the Rasta that was giving it to you would let you know that no matter what happens, always keep this book. Always keep this book. So we're just going to read chapter 5, United Nations International. In 1923, His Imperial Majesty, then Regent and Heir Apparent, secured membership of Ethiopia to the League of Nations. Although the League abandoned his country to the aggressor, this did not dampen his faith and belief in international organizations. So the heir apparent to the Ethiopian throne that goes back forever got abandoned by these colonists. Because if stuff goes back thousands of years before you guys, you know, automatically you should just show honor. But no, they didn't show honor. But this did not dampen his faith and belief in international organizations. The corruption that was going on didn't have him take a position of throw in the towel. Thus, in 1945, when 50 nations met in San Francisco to establish the United Nations, Ethiopia, under the emperor's leadership, was one of them. He has the distinction of being the only head of state that had the unique privilege of having addressed both the League of Nations and the United Nations. For His Imperial Majesty, the UN is considered man's last hope to maintain and preserve world peace. This is one of Moor's principles, which is one of the Moor's principles. UN and war settlement. The League of Nations failed and failed, basically because of its inability to prevent aggression against my country. But neither the depth of that failure nor the intervening catastrophes could dull the perception of the need and the search for peace through collective security. And remember, again, all the nations of the world do this. What they collect stays in-house. That's why they're secure. They're not lining up around no building to go shop. Unless it's, their favorite fast food chain or ice cream or whatever from their country that's now here. They'll line up for that. But they're not lining up for none of this BS that these other people are lining up with. Complaining that how come they're not secure. So it is that here in the United Nations, we have dedicated ourselves anew to those high and indeed essential ideals, essential if the world is to continue on the path of peace. Repping for one of the Moorish principles, taking that to the UN, taking that to the League of Nations. From over there, and keep in mind, don't be fooled. Let's go to this quick fast. The Lion of Judah hath prevailed. Christine Sanford. The Lion of Judah hath prevailed. The whistle blew for the express. Suddenly the door of his carriage was flung open, and a big buff gray-headed guard precipitated himself into the compartment, scrambled into the corridor beyond, threw down a window, and leaned out towards the moving express with every evidence of excitement. Obviously, a crisis was imminent in the working of the Great Western Line. But no, a minute later, the guard relaxed, pulled up the sash, and came back through the compartment looking very much pleased with himself. Then, no doubt feeling that an explanation was called for, remarked with great favor, "That's the man for me." "Who? What? What are you talking about?" "Oh, it was Haile Selassie sitting on that train. You know, the Emperor of Abyssinia." Emperor of where? Let's say it again for all the people who want to be Ethiopian. Why Noble Drew Ali told all these people again, echoing, because remember, 1923 he went to the League of Nations. That's around time Noble Drew Ali. Remember, he wasn't crowned anything yet. Remember, we told you 1930 is the date where the split happened. And it's either the ones who are with moving for world peace or they're against it. So 23, he goes to the League of Nations as Emperor of Abyssinia. Noble Drew Ali in the 101 questionnaire tells you that you're not Ethiopian. That's a demarcation line. You're not a line. You have a nationality. And remember, he was taught by Hannah Bay in the Menelik school. You want more, you can go to the khalifamedia.com, get the Nationality is the Order of the Day book by Kudjo Adwo-El, where we break down all the Garvey stuff and the Moorish science and Rastafarian and put everybody in one pot and mix it all up. So you can't say that we don't have this locked. Ethiopia. is a fiction. Now, if you say it in their language over there, it's not Ethiopia. But then, you know, they'll never say that. They'll just stay with the Greek BS. Because they've chased after the gods of Europe that they knew nothing of, and now they are them. The gods of Europe are unspiritual Moors. The gods of Europe are the sellouts. You know, European pale god of Europe. Dirty Moors are the gods of Europe. The one who gives this colonizer his power on the planet are the ones who are not striving for the universal peace, the collective security, that every nation should have that, not just Moors only. Why not? That would bring peace and harmony if every nation had collective security. That's the man for me. Who? What? What are you talking about? Oh, it was Haile Selassie sitting on that train. You know, the emperor of Abyssinia. So don't get thrown off because you hear Ethiopia. Don't lose yourself. We just said that he was pushing for peace. That's one of the Moorish principles everybody knows. If they know Moors, they know love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, because Moors rep that. Dirty, whoever, it doesn't matter, they rep that. So people know what that is. So when you hear people of stature, people of significance, like the emperor of Abyssinia, telling you things, and the things he's telling you is relative to what Moors are telling you, since you can't reach out and touch him, you should probably reach out and touch him more and see what's up. Because he's saying the same stuff that Haile Selassie is saying. But beat the drum to the high heavens for Haile Selassie and now recognize that he himself is a Moor. He was taught by Hannah Bay. You go check Menelik School principal that Haile Selassie went to as a youth man. When there's a picture out there with him wearing the ankh and all that, as a child. Because when he was a child, trust me, they were going Abyssinia and even further back than that. As far as there was no European involvement in their affairs when Haile Selassie was a child. The wise mind of Emperor Haile Selassie. Education. We are determined to be masters of our fate, owners of our wealth, and capable of removing the adjective dark from the name of our continent. Remember, this is over there. Over there, they didn't even get to black. They said dark, we're getting rid of that. We're not even going as far as black. At dark, they're drawing the line. You're not going there with us. And remember, this is the emperor talking, so our continent, not our Horn of Africa country in stuff. Our continent. Why is he talking about our continent? Emperors are in charge of empires, right? An emperor is the head of an empire. Tell me, where have you ever heard that there's some Ethiopian or Abyssinian empire or whatever? You think Haile Selassie wore a golden fez because he wasn't riding with the Moors? You think all the emperors before him had a golden fez, not riding with the Moors? Oh, that's a crown. Oh, all right, cool. Exactly, brother Ray L. And Islam to you too. Long time, more. Moore said, I call them Abyssinian. And they give honors to the fact that he knows and that they didn't say, he didn't call them Ethiopian. Think about that. Forget Haile Selassie now. We're talking about the actual people that we can reach out and touch today, since we can't touch him. Okay, reach out and touch them. Remember, since his time, they got dark off the continent. They don't talk that BS over there. Why? Because he was already game to the psychology in 1923 when he went to the League of Nations and they abandoned him. Education, that of the nation and of the individual, is the bastion of this goal. Knowledge paves the way to love, and love in turn fosters understanding and leads one along the path of great common achievements. Great common achievements. So you don't have to hit the home run on the first swing. You don't have to find out that you're a Moor and, take the plates off and jump in the thing and just go 500 miles an hour just because you can. Do the little things. Because many people doing little things get more things done than everybody trying to move their own boulder. How about we move everybody's boulder one at a time? Oh, but now you want to do that because, then they have to be Islamic, and they don't want to be Islamic because Haile Selassie is there, whatever. And you didn't hear him say that knowledge paves the way to love? Isn't love one of the Moorish principles? We've been telling people since before Haile Selassie even stepped on the scene. knowledge paves the way to love. And Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, learn to love instead of hate. And then Noble Drew Ali told Moors in big bold letters in the Quran, know thyself. So, could it be that know thyself is really what makes the love principle manifest so that the all other principles could manifest? Remember, this is, if you ask the Rastafarians about Haile Selassie, they hold him past the extremes of high. So, all right, they honor him that much. All right, cool. Let's go with how much they honor him and see what he's saying about education. That the Moors constantly are trying to relay to our people. That's why we say study, study, study. Because Noble Drew Ali told us since 1900s, around the same time, Haile Selassie, won the League of Nations, Noble Drew Ali is already doing his work. Loyalty inspires understanding, and understanding, cooperation. These are the clearest evidence of strength. Loyalty inspires understanding, and understanding, cooperation. Isn't that the same thing Noble Drew Ali was saying by telling us to study together, Moors, be around each other, Moors, so we can get to know thyself, know each other. Once we know each other, we will have loyalty. On top of that, we have a covenant backing that loyalty. And because we have that inner, under, and overstanding, now we can move as a collective, which Noble Drew Ali said, a nation. The cherry on top, nationhood, nationality. And then the chocolate syrup after everything or whatever is that we're Moors. And this is not some new thing. We've been Moors. So we gravitate to this the way that we do. This is really who we were. We are who our ancient foremothers and forefathers are. Without doubt or contradiction. The solid basis for all lies in education. It is education which allows people to live together and make them avoid the pitfalls of immorality. and induces respect for the law. Oh, education allows people to avoid the pitfalls of immorality and induces respect for the law. Yeah, because if you're anybody who's really a student of anything, also studies law. Is there really a student? Law also applies, whatever it is that they're studying. And remember, that's really secret. Because if you knew that every jurisdiction of learning has a law department, no matter what it is, you would take law a little bit more serious. You would see why Ma'at gave you laws and why they had laws chiseled in stone. Because the laws don't change or pass away. It's the same stuff, just written different. Because it's principles. And education is what activates it. Knowing. Knowing what? Knowing yourself, knowing your surroundings, knowing where you live, knowing who you are. Any type of knowing. Truly, the attainment of these high aims is based on education and helping of people to live together, to avoid indulgence, immorality, and lawlessness. An awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personality and our identity as Africans. Education, work, and diligence are the main foundation of our national existence. To command and to be commanded is the fruit of education, and unity and confidence is the result. Education of the youth is the surest guarantee for a better life. This is on to all the Moors that are teaching their children since they came out the womb that they're Moors. And those children are 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever right now, and they don't play any of that BS that these indoctrination camps are trying to put them under. They're not playing that. They're definitely not playing that. In all the countries we have visited, we have noted that education is the basis for the greatness, the power, and pride and prosperity of a nation. Overall, you told these Moors build schools, right? Overall, had Sunday school in the Moorish Science Temple. So obviously he was for making sure people are educated. And then he told Moors, he was specific, he told them the truth and the divine truth you're supposed to be educated with. And they took away that divine right for you to be educated. That's why, again, honors to the Moors that study, that didn't sit there and complain about some whatever. They went and started studying to find out what's what. They didn't say forget the temple because they didn't tell me about whatever I asked them. They went and go study. They will find out whatever it is that they want to know. Not asking these clowns for anything. Like, you have something so impactful by this individual just on education. We go through this with the metaphysical Bible dictionary, and you see how far this goes. You have a completely different perspective than looking at this personage of this individual because he's on some white horse coming out the clouds and with the lightning bolts or whatever. Yeah, that's amazing, but it's not really what it's about. Did you get the message? Stop watching people. Listen to what they're saying. You're saying something that resonates with truth and divine truth? Okay, ears open. You're talking some BS? It'll waste your time. I think we go out and we call all these dirty Moors and stuff like that, so you don't waste your time. Don't waste your time with that. Doing our best to set you on the straight and narrow, so you're not being miseducated by people who got turbans and feathers on, going against Haile Selassie, Noble Drew Ali, and everybody else. Who was sent here to these Asiatics in America. And we can parallel the Emperor of Abyssinia. We can parallel the stuff he's talking about with Noble Drew Ali. And you don't want to get down with this? A well-informed public opinion is essential to the growth of political and social awareness. Only he who is informed can comment intelligently on his nation's development, and only by such comment can errors be corrected and progress stimulated. The construction of edifices for required schools is not the real problem. The problem is to awaken the people to the need for such schools. The possession of degrees alone does not classify anyone as fully educated. Ain't Noble Drew Ali tell you that? Noble Drew Ali tell you that? About the educated fools? Don't worry, Jeremy. Don't worry, Jeremy, babe, I got you. Don't worry. You just jump in the gun and stuff. Was gun jumping. So we shall return to The Lion of Judah Hath Prevailed, Christine Sanford. The Dynasty. The royal line of kings of Ethiopia has its origin, as do many of those in European countries, in legend and story. but none can claim a longer descent nor an origin so substantiated in national literature and primitive literature than the dynasty founded by the Queen of Sheba and her only son Menelik. This story forms the principal theme of one of the earliest documents of Ethiopic literature, the Kebra Nagast, composed in the 13th century and still remains the subject of a series of scenes painted on canvas to be brought today in the streets of Addis Ababa. Moreover, it is of supreme importance politically. In his book on Ethiopia, Archbishop David Matthew makes the cult of this dynamic theory the foundation of which the realm of Ethiopia has been built up. And in the introduction to his translation of the Kebra Nagas, or Glory of Kings, Sir Wallace Budge points out the awe and reverence in which this early document, with its evidence of Solomonian descent, is held throughout the country. Here is the story. The Queen of Sheba, or the Queen of the South, having heard, as the Bible narrative tells us, of the wisdom and riches of King Solomon, journeyed from her kingdom, according to Ethiopian legend, a city near Axum, or possibly in the country of Saba, which forms part of the Arabian Peninsula, to assure herself of the truth of all she had heard. Overcome by the splendor of his court and the certainty that he had divine protection and inspiration, the queen, who had hitherto been a worshiper of the sun and stars, professed herself to convert to the monotheism of the Jewish king, and asked for counsel and guidance that she might return to her own country and rule it all right. And then you know how, you know that stuff there. The Portuguese were therefore the first Europeans to make close contact with the medieval civilization of Ethiopia. And from the 15th century onward, the history of the country can be traced with comparative accuracy. Alvarez, who acted as chaplain to a mission sent to investigate the country in 1520 during the reign of Lebna Dengel, brought back a clear picture of the condition of the country and the magnificent, if primitive, state of its rulers. We found a large and rich dais of very splendid carpets, and there we saw Prester John sitting on a platform of 6 steps, very richly adorned. He had on his head a high crown of gold and silver, high crown, and a silver cross in his hand. There was a piece of blue taffeta before his face, which covered his mouth and beard. At his right hand, he had a page with a silver cross in his hand. The prester was dressed in a rich robe of brocade and a silk shirt of wide sleeves, which looked like a pelisse. Now, let us, as they were talking about Prester John sitting on a platform of 6 steps, very richly adorned, had on his head the high crown of gold and silver, silver cross in his hand, piece of whatever, blue taffeta before his face, covering his mouth and his beard. Now, then we're talking about Ethiopia. Now, this article right here, Esther Schroeder, European high nobility, dressing up as Moor, Ethiopian, African, or African continent. It is hardly common knowledge that European high nobility liked to dress up as Moor, Ethiopian, African, or African continent a few centuries ago. The Court of Wittenberg, 1616-1617. Special festivities offered a perfect opportunity for a ruler to assume the role of an African, an Ethiopian, or a Moor. From the late Middle Ages, feasts and tournaments were important occasions to celebrate a baptism, wedding, or ceremonial arrival by a European ruler. Such festivities included triumphal processions and the staging of mock battles between companies such as the Christians and the Moors or Scythians, and deviant groups such as impostors. Special masks were made to enable whites to play a Moor. You can carry on. The whole point, the whole point is that we were the ones that were ruling. We were the ones ruling. Think about it. Everywhere, no matter where it was, everywhere that you went, all you're seeing is quote unquote black figures. But all of them are mind-blowingly more advanced than you. And the only way to get the people to give up that power is for you to take their name, either from them or have it and use it for your advancement while they play around with the fictions. Now we say the line of Solomon and Sheba. Remember your metaphysical Bible dictionary. Because when you have people that do things, when you have people that do things on the earth plane, and then others are gonna take the things that these people did and relate it to some type of scriptures, automatically you better be thinking metaphysical. Stop looking at these individuals that they're showing you. And understand the higher meaning. That when you talk about, the quote unquote Solomonic line, the Solomonic line is the same cord Noble Ali said bounds us. The line's not this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and they're lined up. The line is that same message that Noble Drew Ali was presenting to the Moors. Why we have a covenant. Because it's due to our connection to the Moabite line, which is the Canaanite and the Phoenician, and it's not the direct individuals. And again, just like they always make individuals, you know, Jualis talked about Garvey being John the Baptist. What's that metaphysically, though? The family. The present empire of Ethiopia is divided into provinces, and a glance at the map will show that Shoa holds the central position, cut off from the northern territory, perhaps deliberately, as has already been shown by allowing the penetration of Gala tribes as well as by the configuration of the country itself. The rulers in Shoa, crowned on their circular hill of Mona Gasha, still a landmark on the horizon west of Addis Ababa, had established for themselves a position of considerable influence, deriving descent from the Solomonial line through Abatu Yalkob, a son of Lebna Dangle, who had been emperor during the 16th century. They now began to assume a position of equality with the rulers of the north, and even to conduct negotiations and enter into relations with foreign countries. In 1840 and 1841, King Haile Selassie received the missions of M. Rochette d'Erico from France and of Major Cornwallis Harris of England. Both met the king in his capital at Ankobert. Haile Selassie was seated in a leather chair, his head bare, with his hair frizzled into little curls. A small gold cross was suspended from his neck by a blue ribbon, while a lappe, brilliant embroidered, but partially concealed a vest of Indian workmen embroidered with gold beneath. Two massive gold bracelets on his wrists completed his costume. Under his rule, Shaw enjoyed a period of peace and stable government. And Cornwallis notes, a rich mercantile harvest is assuredly in store for those who shall unlock the portals of the eastern coast, and shall spread navigation upon waters that have hitherto proved barren. His long reign lasted until 1847, when his son, Haile Melekot, succeeded him. While Haile Selassie ruled in Shoa, there were two other powerful rulers contending for supremacy in the north. Ras Ali of Gondar, a former Muslim who had become first mayor and had then, in order to gain the support of the church, turned Christian, and the Jazmak Wabi, who ruled supreme in the north from coast of the Red Sea to Gondar, including the whole of Tigre. Though many travelers had visited these parts, no official intercourse was maintained with any of these chiefs by the British government until Mr. Plowden suggested to the Foreign Office the advisability of establishing a consulate at the port of Mosoa, explaining how, in his opinion, a considerable commerce must ensue. On the 2nd of November, 1848, A treaty of friendship and commerce was concluded between England and Ras Ali, though the latter is reputed to have thought that little could ever come of it. It would seem curious that within a decade or two, missions would have been dispatched on similar errands to two different rulers, one of Shoa, one of Gondar. But it served to show the confused state of affairs, both in Ethiopia itself and in the eyes of the outside world. Ras Ali, who was not of the Solomon line of descent, found it hard to maintain his position as head of government and was finally killed after an engagement against a rival chief Kasa, who had denounced his authority. This Kasa was ultimately crowned in 1855 as the Emperor Theodore. He was not and did not claim to be of the Solomon line, but his vigorous and successful campaigns in all parts of the country and his championship of the church led to a general recognition of his position. He was at the outset of his career a man of strong character, imbued with an enthusiasm for Christianity and a real desire for reform. In this, he failed to find support among the local chiefs, who saw only a possible check on their own freedom action. Now, we're gonna do quick fast. I forgot something. Blackout, that's my alarm clock is shot. Liquor sis holding niggas crack in a crotch. Blackout, that's my alarm clock is shot. Liquor you man got two hands with blocks. Always red out with an evil scheme in mind. Doing stupid things with his partners in crime. Blackout, that's my alarm clock is shot. Blackout, that's my alarm clock. You claim you rep Chester Lee, but who's Chester Lee? Not hearing shots but killings happen next to me. You hate cops around but you bring them. With guns towed in ways and drug slinging, playing the kingpin, killing your brother over Democrat, PC, and liberal colors, bringing grief to single mothers. Where thugs mingle, they in the line looking for lovers. Bail hearing in the morning, not going to funeral homes cause there's so much mourning. Won't rise early, 1 p.m. you're still snoring, hanging on blocks, mental slavery rocks in pockets, big guns that shoot rockets at girls on the bus. If they ban nigga, they banning us. The plan is up, so let's have a truce. All blocks link up, we need a truce. There's a lot more. In this, he failed to find support among the local chiefs, who saw only a possible check on their own freedom of action. Yet, in spite of growing unpopularity, he did much to unify the country, especially in the north. He was then strong enough to challenge the growing power of the Shoan kingdom, now under the rule of Haile Selassie, son of Haile Selassie. He seized his capital of Ankober, and when the king died on the eve of battle, captured and imprisoned his son Menelik, then a boy of 12 years of age. His newly unified empire had, however, not solid foundation. Disinfection and rebellion among the chiefs and governors of provinces angered and embittered the emperor. His enthusiasm for the church waned. His need for money entailed heavy exactions from his subjects. His cordiality and courtesy, recorded by his European friends on their first contacts with him, gave way to suspicion, malevolence, and finally madness. Venting this upon all the sundry he imprisoned and ill-treated English and other residents, thus bringing upon himself retaliatory action from the British government, who sent a force of 16,000 men to rescue their nationals. Well, not their citizens back then, huh? Theodore, on the defeat of his army at Magdala in 1868, shot himself. It was at this juncture that the young Menelik escaped and re-established himself as king of Shoa. After Tekla Georgis had reigned for 3 years, the Jasmet Kasa assumed the royal title and was crowned as Emperor John at Axum in 1872. The latter consolidated the conquest of Theodore and added to them the important town of Harar in the southeast, which had been evacuated by the Egyptians who had held the province for 10 years. Evacuated. Haile Selassie, king of Shoa, had a large family and sons and daughters, of whom Haile Meleko, the eldest, succeeded him. Among his daughters was Teneg Work, married to the Jasmat Walda Mikhail of Shoadoba. His father was Walda Meleko, a well-known figure at Haile Selassie's court, famous as a maker of roads. Their younger son, Ras Makinen, was therefore first cousin to the Emperor Menelik. While the latter was engaged in the wars, first within his own territories, which resulted in the unification of his empire, and then outside its boundaries, this Ras Makinen was an able general and loyal friend. He fought at Adwa with conspicuous bravery. With his imperial master, he achieved the pacification of Harar province and put into practice such reform in the administration and in the law courts that the justice of Ras Makinen became a byword in his province. When at last the empire was consolidated from within, the protected from without, it was Ras Makinen who was sent by Menelik to make friendly contacts with other nations. He had visited France, Italy, and England as the emissary of the emperor in order to help Ethiopia to place a place of respect and acknowledgement among the nations of the world. And it was perhaps these contacts with the civilizations of the West that warned and advised the Ras that without education, Ethiopia could never hold her own in the world of the 20th century. And then in the same book that we were reading earlier, the no title book from Addis Ababa, it talks in there about Haile Selassie's school and Empress Menen's school and Menelik's school and all these schools that, from as far as this point on, they were building there. I'm just trying to, the country and its people. But anyway, the book again. The book again is The Lion of Judah Hath Prevailed. The Lion of Judah Hath Prevailed. Christine Sanford. Um, taking the lead. It was the 27th of September, 1916, that the storm broke, the day after the Moscow celebrations. On that day, the Council of the State and the Ethiopian chiefs took the law into their own hands, gathering their forces together at Addis Ababa and sending a contingent of soldiery down to Harar. They declared that Legiasu was disposed, that Zaditu, Melanic's daughter by a former wife, was appointed empress, and that the Jasmak Tafari, perhaps his father's son, perhaps because he had given evidence of energy, ability, and constructive policy, should be regent and heir to the throne with the title of Ras. He will never submit to Islam, they declared. We do not wish our country to be delivered to the foreigner through the malice of Legiasu, who is leading our kingdom to ruin. The Abuna Matthios put the seal on this unprecedented action by declaring Legiasu excommunicate. Tafarai's acquiescence and lead in these events needs the following comment. He had been up to that moment, and indeed had been ever since, very careful to do nothing to impair the prestige of the throne. When in 1911, Legiasu was confirmed in the regency by the Council of State, he had thought it expedient to bind to his side the man whom he felt to be his most potent rival, and he had therefore made a contract on his oath with Tafari, whereby he on his side engaged never to remove the latter from his governorship in Harar, while Tafari on his side promised to render him continuous and loyal support. But when Legiasu deposed Tafari from the governorship of Harar and transferred him to Kaffa, this automatically released Tafari from his side of the bargain, and from then onwards he felt there was no course open to him but to throw in his lot with the Shoan chiefs, whose natural leader he soon became. On the morning of 20th of September, rumors began to fly about the town of Harar, like fire over dry stubble, that Legiasu had been officially deposed at the capital and Waziro Zaditu had been proclaimed Empress of Ethiopia. On the same day, it became common knowledge that a telegram signed by Tafari as Ras and Regent, addressed to the governor of Harar, instructing that chief to seize and enchain Legiasu, had been received at the telegraph office, but that this had been delivered into the hands of Legiasu himself by the official in charge of the posts and telegraphs. Immediately after this, telegraphic communication with the capital ceased, and also the postal services. On receiving the telegram, Legiasu summoned the leading priests of Harar and made them swear that they would excommunicate any chiefs and soldiers who proved unfaithful to him. At the same time, he swore on the cross and the Bible that he was a true Christian and remained absolutely faithful to the interests of his country. On the evening of the same day, he promoted 3 Fitararis, Fitararis, to the rank of the Jasmak, and imprisoned Kagnazmak Imeru, the cousin and faithful adherent of Tafari. On the 1st of October, at midday, these the Jasmaks were ordered to proceed at once with their troops to oppose the forces coming from Addis Ababa. One of them, the Syrian Libby, went down to Dire Dawa and enlisted 300 Turkish Arabs and others. In the meantime, Legiasu remained at the palace in Harar. He was like everyone else, without reliable news from Addis Ababa, but he must long before this. He was like everybody else, without reliable news from Addis Ababa, but he must long before this have realized that he had completely lost the confidence and goodwill of his people, and that his one and faint hope lay with the Mohammedans. By midday on the 8th of October, it became known that Lidyasu was leaving the town that night, which he did shortly after dusk. Before he left, news was circulating in the town that the officers sent to oppose the troops had been sent from Addis Ababa, had deserted, and with their men gone over to the enemy. And it goes on and on. Proclamation. In the name of the Crown Prince and Regent Plenipotentiary of the Ethiopian realm, His Majesty King Tafari Makanen, on his ascending the imperial throne, with the name of His Majesty Haile Selassie I, King of Kings of Ethiopia. Proclamation. King Tafari Makanen, in accordance with the proclamation which our Creator abiding in his people and electing us did cause to be made, we have lived without breach of our covenant as mother and son. Now, in that by the law and commandment of God, none that is human may avoid return to earth. Her Majesty the Empress, after a few days of sickness, has departed this life. The passing of Her Majesty the Empress is grievous for myself and for the whole of the empire, since it is the long-lasting custom that when a king, the shepherd of his people, shall die, a king replaces him. I, being upon the seat of David, to which I has bethroned, will by God's charity watch over you. Trader trade, farmer plow. I shall govern you by the law and ordinance that has come, handed down from my fathers. April 3rd, 1930. Rastafari Makanen succeeded the throne on the 3rd of April 1930 and was crowned King of Kings in the great state on 2nd of November of the same year. The Lion of Judah hath prevailed. Haile Selassie I, elect of God, King of Kings of Ethiopia. So ran his title. He took the throne name of Haile Selassie I. This was his baptismal name, which every child received from the priest at baptism, and which they may or may not use for general purposes. The position he had already created for himself and his country was evidenced by the fact that many foreign countries sent important representatives to attend the ceremonies. The Duke of Gloucester represented the King of England, the Prince of Savoy, the King of Italy, while the French government sent Marshal Franchet d'Esprit. Much had been done to prepare the capital city, still in its infancy in comparison with others, for the visitors. For the first time, the two main thoroughfares were faced with tarmac and the only city gates removed. The Cathedral of St. George was redecorated and a large annex set up in the garden surrounding it. The police force was put into uniform and in an incredibly short period of training showed themselves well able to maintain order and deal with the enormous increase of street traffic. For in the 10 years between 1920, when there could be seen only one car, the property of the Empress, and 1930, when there were hundreds of cars on the roads, the whole aspect of the city streets changed. The Lion of Judah hath prevailed. Christine Sanford. There's also a couple more. A People's History of the American Revolution. Oh, a Great Seal in it. And that's something. Isn't that something? The problem was vastly complicated by the fact that, in a real sense, there is no such thing as an Indian. The problem was vastly complicated by the fact that, in a real sense, there is no such thing as an Indian. White society was organized around the notion of contractual relationship around predictable behavior. This is why all the psychological master teachers told all these Negroes, protect your mind. Don't let these people get that. Because once they get your mind, now they know how you think. So your behavior is going to be easily predictable. So if I can predict that your dumbass is going to sign this contract just because I'm giving it to you, you're not going to wait for a lawyer or nothing like that. You're just going to sign. Why not give you the contract? Matter of fact, since I know you don't read it, how about we put all this stuff in there that we know you're not going to read? So that way, you're bound to it anyways, because we already know you're not going to read. Observing the Indians, who have few but natural wants and those easily supplied, Benjamin Franklin was inclined to propose a whole new theory of human development. They are not deficient in natural understanding, and they have never shown any inclination to change their manner of life. Sounds like some Negroes. Now, would the shade of skin have been reproached at this day? For if a Moor may be washed white in 3 generations, surely an Indian might have been bleached in 2. Blanched in 2. Now these are Moor as a reference. Oh yeah, because Moor means dark skin. Doesn't matter who they're talking about. Doesn't matter what country they're talking about. They know what they're talking about when they say Moor. You know exactly what they're talking about. Oh yeah. Did you know the Moors assisted whites in conquering blacks? This level of thinking, again, is why the world does not respect our people. The little known fact is that there were actually operations in place by people in the Catholic faith in the 1500s that were saying, take all of these cultural reference points away from these Moors. Take it from them. So if they took it from the Moors, and then you're telling me about some queen and France, and these people have people with fezzes going into the continent to help whites conquer blacks, is a fraud. Because those individuals with fezzes weren't Moors in that sense of the word. It's the same thing with what we were talking about earlier with the European high nobility dressing up as Moors, Ethiopians, Africans. It's the same play. European African soldiers dressing up like Moors, Ethiopians, Africans, and have you think that that's all of a sudden, just because Moors started talking about birthrights and waking up people, now they are talking about fezzes and all this, and they have an issue with it. Freemasons were playing around with fezzes for forever. Not one word, not one peep from these people. Hindus, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, they all been rocking fezzes, not one word. So we already know. We already got the point that when they start playing this, it's all part of trying to lead you away from this fact about your nationality and birthrights. Your nationality and birthrights is a fact. It's not fiction. Your nationality and birthrights is a fact. And we'll say again that this is propaganda. This is not Queen Elizabeth examining her Moorish troops in the context how they're presenting this. Right? Realize that your culture as the rulers of the planet are meant for you to have today to activate the ancient frequencies and the ancient energies. because you already know that as soon as you see a marked fez, there's not no Moors. Those are sellouts. If they got marked fezzes, they probably sold out. And if they sold out, they're not on the high road with the true Moors. The Moors who are selling packages, we don't rate them. We recognize that at least they know they're Moors, but we don't rate them. They don't get honors. That's who these people are. Those ones, right? This should say, did you know the dirty Moors assisted whites in conquering blacks? Because only a dirty Moor is going to say somebody's white and somebody's black. True Moors don't talk like that. Yeah, serious infighting. Why? Because some of our people do not want to be who our ancient foremothers and forefathers were. And they know better. But like we know, some of us are the enemies of our ancient foremothers and forefathers come again. Still doing their eneminess. Because that's just how they do. And that's a fact that it's endgame. All the ways of trying to persuade the people from their birthright. Those stuff don't work anymore. That only works on the people who, to this, they're useless. Because you have to have an active position in this. Speaking about active position in this, a Moor called me today. To check this one out. A Moor called me today. Actually, a Moor's mate called me today and said, yeah, this Moor wants to build with me. You know what I mean? Been a while and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna call you. Like, all right. So come to find out, Moor's been kidnapped for about 9 months. Moor's been kidnapped. Now, this Moor that is kidnapped right now has pretty much been, we'll say, abandoned by the Moorish consular court. Maybe 2 months into being kidnapped, all of a sudden he's not hearing from them anymore. Now, one thing, the Moor is a master metaphysician, so he's in high spirits. He already has all of them up in there telling him about Mr. Bay and all that. He's had particular quote unquote badge guys in there telling him that, what he's doing is right. Now, he's had 2 court dates. in the 9 months. And right now it's pretty much waiting game, because calls the DA's office, or something's being investigated, so that's why we're still not doing anything yet. But the Moor's in good spirits, you know what I mean? He said, don't even look at it on some, you know, don't even look at it on some low vibes. Like, he's not on low vibes in there, right? He's straight in there. So one of the questions he has is, you know, like, this is supposed to be extraction stuff and all that. How come there's nothing going on? Again, you know, Moor's in good spirits, you know, big deal, you know. The only thing is, you know, he misses his family and his daughter and his mom and stuff. But other than that, you know, he's straight. But it's real interesting that this Moorish consular court is, you know, from what I understand, their foundation, their introduction was that they've gotten extractions of people who got locked up. That's how they made their entrance. They made their entrance by claiming when people get kidnapped, they've extracted them. Now, nobody stepped up and said, yep, I'm one of those guys that got extracted, or nothing like that. I'm just saying, you know, active Moors, we get tax off, we're getting a receipt and we're showing that off. Some of these Moors extracted people and they're not showing anything. And they're talking from some perspective of they're having meetings and stuff like that where people been kidnapped 9 months. How? And Moore's not even, you know what I mean, on some crazy or nothing like that. You know, has family and whatever, and got kidnapped one day. And, you know, in conversation with them that, you know, if anything happens with any of the whatever, then they can call and they'll do whatever it is that they do, send whatever it is that they send. And then extract people. Like I'm saying, more straight, more just like, the hell is this? Like, what, you know, we're talking about it and we probably think that, you know, it's probably a personal, because he said that he wasn't, you know, even though he used intelligent tone, he might not have used intelligent spirit when he was talking to the Magi. And, you know, Magi might have felt, you know, like he got punked off or whatever. He might be feeling like he got this because he's the Magi, and, you know what I mean, the jurisdiction where he's at, you know, it's can't remember the show that he made reference to, but it's basically, you know, Hicktown, Hickville. Right? Hicktown. So it's only KKK and stuff like that where he's at. But the KKK is cool, you know what I mean? They're not, they don't got no issues. They, you know, like I said, they're telling him Mr. Bay and all that. You know, but we think that they're playing to hold him because he got the Magi mad. Magi probably felt like he got this. You know, and again, it's not a negative or whatever, you know what I mean? Moore accepts his whatever for even being in the situation or whatever like that. Because again, it's that same theme that we're talking about, guilty by association, whatever, that these people use. Especially when you start talking about you're more and you know you're governing yourself by principles and all that stuff. You better be governing yourself by those, right? And just to put it on the record, regardless of what it is that the individual was doing, if they get kidnapped on a guilty by association, but you know that they're sincere and it was just them in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, they need a head back slap because, you know, they just shouldn't have been there, you still don't abandon them. You still go extract them if that's what it is that you do. Don't leave them there. Just because you don't know what to do with whatever, right? That's like the same people who say, oh, well, so and so, oh, I got kidnapped and I called. No, what do you mean you called? What are you calling about? Yeah, well, because we are a nation, we have a covenant, and okay. How do you even get into whatever you got into? Well, you see, well, what happened was, and then they start going into that, you know, then you're on your own. Like, nothing personal, but you should have known. Should have known. There's no way that you didn't get the big moth in your stomach, or the hair at the back of your neck, or the spidey senses, or something. Something would have went off when you were in that situation that, you know what, it's time for me to get the hell out of here. Always, once you're on nationality birthrights, ancestors, spiritual, whatever, always are sending you signals when you're doing some niggerness. You can't even tiptoe into niggerness without the spirit say, hey, we see you over there trying to go into the nigger stuff. Stop it before we give you a lesson. And when you think that they're not looking, there you go, trying stuff. Right? So yeah, don't endanger your life with a fool. You don't endanger your life with a fool. Because once you endanger your life with a fool, then you're the fool. Because you knew better. But again, you know, to those in those situations, you realize, oh, damn, that was me. I was endangering my life with a fool. All right, you know, and then whatever the judgment is, you gotta learn your lesson. Because this is birthright. So if you had it from birth and nobody gave it to you, it's your stuff. So you better know what it is that you have. So the whole point of us knowing that we're Moors is really spiritual enlightenment. It has nothing to do with cards and papers and whatever. The whole point of knowing we're not Negro, black, colored is spiritual. That's not papers and cards. Has to be completely understood that Noble Drew Ali wasn't an idiot. He said divine before national for a reason. And so many people are caught up in this earthly BS. The man said divine. Even if it's earthly, you should be looking at it from a divine perspective, even if it's earthly. Not looking at it earthly because it's earthly. Oh, so if any more's, where we at right now? 8:44. If any more's got any questions in the chat, any new more's that's just been in the cut, not making no comments because they're like, I'm not going in that chat. Those more's gonna eat me if I go in there. Now's your time. Bring your questions if you have any. If not, it is what it is. No big deal. No biggie. Keep in mind, MHHS Eyes Wide Open, Blog Talk Radio, 9:30 p.m. tonight. It is Tuesday night, so you already know. 9:30 Eastern Time. 425-569-5201. 425-569-5201. 347-945-5899. 347-945-5899. blogtalkradio.com. MHHS, Eyes Wide Open. As everybody's good in the chat. Islam. Exactly. Every time you meet a Moor, send them to Canaanland Moors. Tell them go check out the Back to Basics playlist. 25 classes. You get through those 25 classes, you're ready to be a Moor. Talking about, yeah, I got through 10 and then I saw this video by this guy and then I went. You're going to be lost in the sauce. I give you 10 days. 10 days. That's it. Go back to some Haile Selassie. Haile Selassie's Wise Mind. Self-help. Chapter 8. No person is able to understand and solve one's own problem better than oneself. Let us set our goals too high. Let us demand more of ourselves than we believe we possess. In our efforts to improve the standard of life of our peoples and to flesh out the bones of our independence, we count on the assistance and support of others. But this alone will not suffice, and alone will only perpetuate Africa's dependence. We cannot depend always on others. We cannot depend always on others. Sometimes, you know, yeah, we're going to stick our hand out. But most times, no person is able to understand and solve one's own problem better than oneself. Yeah, message. Oh, looking out the window. Any questions out there? Comments, testimonials? Anything whatsoever? Haile Selassie, Chapter 10, Leadership. Leadership does not mean domination. The world is always well supplied with people who wish to rule and dominate others. The true leader is of a different sort. He seeks effective activity which has a truly beneficent purpose. He inspires others to follow in his wake, and holding aloft the torch of wisdom, leads the way for society to realize its genuinely great aspirations. The art of leadership consists in the ability to make people want to work for you, and when they are really under no obligation to do so. Leadership is required in all fields, and no field is without its usefulness. Within his own sphere, each has the same opportunities for sowing ability and the same potential satisfactions as has the leader of a government. Leaders are people who raise the standards by which they judge themselves and by which they are willing to be judged. The goal chosen, the objectives selected, the requirements imposed are not merely for their followers alone. They develop with consummate energy and devotion their own skills and knowledge in order to reach the standards they have set for themselves. This wholehearted acceptance of the demands imposed by every higher standard is the basis of all human progress. Leaders have to submit themselves to a stricter self-discipline and develop a more exemplary character than is expected of others. To be first in place, one must be first in merit as well. A good leader maintains a balance between emotional drive and sound thinking. A good leader maintains a balance between emotional drive and sound thinking. Once a person has decided upon his life work and is assured that in doing the work for which he is best endowed and equipped, he is filling a vital need, what he then needs is faith and integrity, coupled with a courageous spirit, so that no longer preferred himself to the fulfillment of his task, he may address himself to the problems he must solve in order to be effective. To lead, one must first learn to follow. To lead, one must first learn to follow. It is by the deeds rather than the words that you can get most effectively inspired. Doesn't that sound familiar? It is by deeds rather than words. It is by deeds rather than words. Sounds real familiar. Love, generosity, and understanding are evidence of the administrative experience of any government. Love, generosity, and understanding. Chapter 13. Oh. Chapter 14. Independence. This world was not created piecemeal. Africa was born no later and no earlier than any other geographical area on this globe. Africans, no more and no less than other men, possess all human attributes, talents, and deficiencies, virtues, and faults. Africa has been reborn a free continent, and Africans have been reborn as free men. The blood that was shed and the sufferings that were endured are today's Africa's advocates for freedom and unity. Since freedom is an issue upon which national existence itself depends, it becomes a sacred obligation of primary importance for a people of one family, united in their own common life and in oneness of mind and spirit, to preserve their free and pleasant way of life from all external danger and thus be enabled to advance along the path of progress. The glories and advantages of freedom cannot be purchased with all the world's material wealth. Freedom's price is the sacrifice of the lives of innumerable heroes, and in deep realization of this, it becomes the duty of free men everywhere to be ever prepared for the defense of their freedom. Every nation that fights, as we have done, for the defense and maintenance of its independence has the right to expect the honor and indeed the assistance of all freedom-loving peoples. It is but natural that small nations who must so vigilantly defend their independence should regard collective security as the cornerstone of their existence. Their support of that principle should be instant, unhesitating, and absolute. No small state, no democratic nation, no people imbued with clarity, with charity towards its fellow men could do otherwise. The strongest foundation of our independence is the development of our economic resources. Freedom, liberty, and rights of man. These mean little to the ignorant, the hungry, the ill-clothed, and badly housed. Freedom, liberty, and rights of man. These mean little to the ignorant, the hungry, the ill-clothed, and badly housed. Unless the political liberty for which Africans have for so long struggled is complemented and bolstered by the corresponding economic freedom and social growth, the breath of life which sustains our freedom may flicker out. Those who seek independence must be prepared to struggle for it rather than accept it, and having won it, to stand on their own feet without dependence and without favors. Each nation has an inherent right to shape its own destiny and to seek its own way to the high state of advancement which the free nations of the world have attained. A foreign hand is concerned about itself. It will not work for us. Independence cannot be a simple word devoid of meaning. It must remain a principle admitting of no compromise or suspicion, a principle demanding respect for self and at the same time equal respect for the rights of others. Our independence and freedom are meaningless unless they are tied to the hearts of our peoples. Those men who refused to accept the judgment passed upon them by the colonizers, who held unswervingly through the darkest hours to a vision of an Africa emancipated from political, economic, and spiritual domination, will be remembered and revered wherever Africans meet. What we may utter today can add little to the heroic struggle of those who, by their example, have shown us how precious are freedom and dignity, and of how little value is life without them. Their deeds are written in history. The Wise Mind of Emperor Haile Selassie, published by Research Associates, School Times Publications, Frontline Distribution International Incorporated, and Miguel Lorne Publishers, Jamaica. Published in 2004. Frontlinebooks@hotmail.com. Miguel Lorne Publishers, 876-922-3915. headstartp@hotmail.com. Peace and love to all the Moors worldwide. Give thanks for the energy today. Sending it back to all the Moors. Honors to the Prophet Noble Juali. Supreme honors. Supreme honors. To the Forerunner, Marcus Garvey. Once again, we send a shout out, big shout out to all the Abyssinians. And we give honors to His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen for their contributions to the liberation of our people. Don't forget, Blog Talk Radio, 9:30. Be there and on your square. Because they don't play. They don't play. If you got questions, you could send those to canaanlandguide@gmail.com. As well, if you're looking for Iron Sheik music, you can go to willofallah.com and get all the music that you want. If you want any of Cujo L books, khalifamedia.com for all the Cujo L books. Islam to the Moors in Mount Real. We'll be there next month. It's official. We're taking the show on the road because we just, got to get this out to the people. That's just what it is. Got to get it out to the people at all costs. So Islam to the Moors who set that up. Islam to the Ottawa Moors. All the Moors in Canaanland. Peace and love. And we'll definitely get you at 9:30. And as you know, we gotta close it out as usual with something. Peace and love to all. Islam, Moors.
Of course, nobody will talk about that. Many of them still in this movement. You understand what I'm saying? To kill the civic side of this movement, so people can think it's just another black religious Islamic sect. You get? That was their mission, to establish that fake reality, not reality, but that fake appearance of reality, that semblance, that color to the people, which is the color that most people have of the Moorish movement now. And anyone says that's not true is a liar, because that's the concept that people have this movement. Until we came out and started reaching out to them while everybody else was being silent, condemning us for doing it too. And we put literature out there to change their concepts so they could have something to reference to. You understand? Just like the prophet said do. Exactly what the prophet said do. People mad at us, still mad at us for it. I don't care. Because I'm not in it for them. I got babies. And they got babies. And they got babies, and the babies that's still in the womb. And I ain't having it. I'm a soldier. I came as a defender when it was wrong. That's why I do what I do. I'm telling you blunt. And I ain't afraid.
Mufti force of the conscious game. Superstars won't spend all those G's just a supercar. I'd rather put the funds to Mufti force guns. Dr. Sebi remedy in truck skids and tons. Signing bonus, give to Gabriel or Eagle. Or UMIA, let more replace Negro. I'm not the face watcher or friend beggar. I'm not the type to take back what I tell ya. Tight pants and dry clothes, I want a Rockefeller. Black Hawk down, a fly rapper and snap propellers. Airspace in these bars are no flow zones. I heard R&B singers are homo drones. I heard that from a gay rapper dressing so thug. G's can't pass butt cheeks, dressing so snug like a snuggle bear. Showing me your underwear. Rapper Inquisition make rappers run from fear of being shown up. You already thrown up. Punchlines and hooks leave their face swole up. Or like the triad, if you don't pay what's owed up. Rapper Inquisition, horror flick, the lips sewn up. Can't go one-on-one for IHF zone up. Using the fiat and deals, pumping their clones up. Making more rap clones like iRobot. Short circuit the whole industry of rap robots. That butt's boinking. Working with the ones oinking. Hip-hop's hurting IHF, the vocal ointment. Flow like a break waves and b-boy girl dancers. Spit like pain of old school graphers. Fiend for the true hip-hop scratching like a producer. MC OGs with content that they used to. Fiending for true hip-hop scratching like a producer. MC OGs with content that they used to.
They want to make me life hard like pavement. Me no afraid to make my statement. Babylon go on with the mental and physical enslavement. Think right now if we had live like cavemen. How much go they down? How much now go make it? The righteous replace them. The most I erase them. Discrimination, plaguing with nation. Unity is strength, we weak with separation. Jailhouse is meant to deplete elevation. Wisdom visit on the deep meditation. All you have to see on the sleep meditation. Herbs are the healing of the nation. Tell them police, they not stop chase, man, especially since we not the phone of place. That skirt of the truth, they know say you can't take that. See them chat, yeah, this rasta, nah, take back, you don't know.
Couldn't grasp half of the shit that we've been through. These clip ass niggas making comments on YouTube. TorontoRappers.com talking about you too. Generation switch, shouldn't have to show you. Big man grow, bitch, don't worry about the old school. Haven't seen a man you used to see before. Cause certain man don't want the face seen no more. Get off our dicks, your pussies is horns. Tendencies of a bitch, you should learn to be a Moor. And while you're hating, we'll keep repping T.O. and celebrating, cause enough soldiers soon home. We penetrating, got the locks and the codes. So do your own time, bro. We alright. Everybody on their own ground, but we still tight. It's just a miscommunication, which brothers don't fight. You need an occupation, or I forgot you type shit about other man, cause you covered their life. But your business you should mind though, cause we work nights. And you ain't hard to find once darkness comes to light. And I don't care, you can take my flesh life here. I manifest and I come back in your nightmares. And I kill you there. I've been traveling for light years. I can't die, but they won't see your horn here. You won't wake up. Need to call the coroner, another wake up. Your boys will be corona, cause they slept. Reminiscing while the morning saying what the. Just yesterday we was vlogging with each other. Shouldn't have. With just another brother and the rest of the camp. 2 decades straight, we've been making a stamp. Yay, I know you say you don't even know me. I make it clear I'm a Flemodon OG. Year to year, made stacks off the Mosies from the block to the bars. I'm known we between the rats and the stars. I play low-key looking down and it's far at the top, it's getting lonely. Yeah. Of course, the agents that exist, whether or not it's informed by my lips, labeled angelic or devilish, based in the view to the whole against the older we get. Our perspectives and action change, regardless lines drawn between those that intend to hinder the gain. Similar, not the same. Which of the seat, the left to complain. The reference frame change while still thinking life is a game. While we train, this battlefield, knowing when comic kicks is real. My mental plus my tempo must be ready to switch from hurt to heal. It's true to reveal similarities since they be following orders accordingly from trust to destiny. So mercy's unnecessary. Murder honorably one's enemy, and as long as common mode exists, an opposition has to be. Contestment up, contestment up. Yeah, contest. I'll flatten your career, make a whack rapper. Too many whack rappers out there. This one's for y'all, y'all. I'll flatten your career, make a whack rapper disappear. Grab you by your shirt back and kick your ass out of here. Bystanders run for cover, cause I'm back to reap havoc. Remember me? To kill them all and make them die tragic. Turn the opposition, cock it back and let him have it. Let him vanish like a magician and raps for magic. And like proof, you're gone. With the proof I'm on. To all you non-substance rappers, if you want, respond. Give y'all a second, but I recognize you're repping some metrosexual shit, that's not the way that I'm stepping. I studied last year's testing, skimmed the cheat sheets. So test me out, kill commercial rap like dead meat. If you don't know, I'm Simon Phoenix and I deadbeats. Hung commercial rap on front page, I can't be discreet. Lyrically dumpy, leaving bodies in tall heaps. No mortal can walk like I do, now bow and kiss my feet. Call me sire, throw out your skinny jeans and retire. Back you up against the wall with hail or gunfire. Sharp talent shred your skins and shatter your bones. Stay out of the kitchen, better yet drop the microphone. Steadily prepping better recipes. I rap till the end, but rap won't be the death of me. At a shower posse when I catch ya, I wet ya, then blow you up the crime scene. All that's left is your stretcher. So test me now. Make your fans convert. Have them wearing fatigues and burning tight pink ass shirts. Have them dashing out the flashy clothes like I'm not John. Milling me pipe bombs labeled a wannabe rap icon. Check me later, I'm gone. Thought I died, but I respond. My words are bondable, but when I speak, don't respond. I drown shallow-minded MCs in a shallow pond. Mobilize a million men to march like I'm Farrakhan. But I'm more like Malcolm and my brother's son Falcon. Chasing crazy ball heads out of our town after I scalp them. Get up more than you can chew, motherfuckers. Come test me now. So test me now. So test me now. It's still IHF, still ill, hunting feds. The type to leave a body guy leaking from his head. Dirty like the naps in my head. The enemies still want me dead, but mentally I cause their bodies to combust spontaneously. I be that ghetto dentist, removing chest cavities with my psychopathic surgery. My incision won't be circular, more like linear. My network stop arising, can you still hear me clear? No more text messages, only mental mind blast to my comrades. Traders never overstand the task. Rather floss system type pants of money in their hand. Big chains and rims spinning. My stone hands will leave your face smashed and ears ringing. I'ma get it soon beginning, so there's no time for sinning. When I finally kill the devil, I'ma hear this angel singing. Such a beautiful song.
And conscious means that you're conscious of what's going on in this world. You're fully aware and awake to what's going on in this world. That's what conscious rap means. So if you got conscious rap, that means you got unconscious rap. That means you got motherfuckers that's unconscious rapping. That means they sleeping. They still under the spell of the Leviathan. They still under the spell of King.
Call me brother man, I'm not the rubber man. Though I keep my Nazis in affairs wrapped with some rubber bands. Bunning out the Ku Klux Klan and Wizard Grand Dairy Queen misters. Just butts of guns I'm giving. Trying to make more sovereign citizens. These minions help kill your prophets, stole your treasury millions. You heard it from your brother man. Now the smothers sell out. Sets links in K2 Kush days. Keep me red out. I got the knowledge to make these silly hoes question the pimping directors of music videos. Gaylords and persons with strap-on boots with heels. Too much graphic art faces. Boobs are not real. Since MCM and Troop, they use Timberland boots to get us all caught up in fashion, not the simple men roots. Got our people on dogmatic, not metaphysic. Exoteric, not esoteric is how you missed it. So out of it, you couldn't feel the natural mystic blowing through the air like it didn't give a shit. I hear the dirty Moors dissing, cause I said profanities. A lot of these grand sheets need to take off the panties. Pull the thong out your crack vest wearing sash, ass nigga. Return to where the prophet found you, Negro, ass nigga.
It's time to choose a side. You either positive or you negative. You either evil or you good. You understand what I'm saying? Choose a side, nigga. I know what side I'm on.
I throw a Molotov at the priest that works for the beast. All they want is our people to rest in peace. No intention of allowing more stress to ease. Cracker won't go home to spread himself the disease. Genocidal epidemic kill us in high proportions. Instead of mummified, we stay boxed in coffins. Mayors attend funerals for PR purposes. Where's the police escort? He replied with nervousness. He said, I don't have those numbers or connections to have Metro Police lead your friend's funeral procession. That's coming from Mr. Mayor, black community player, no question in the hoods, dropping off boxes of weapons. Then blame black on black crime or natural causes. Plus those doctors are not on point but off a bit. Natural mystics prove they're not holistic. Hypocrite oaths make your children autistic.
I'm at the point now where I'm saying I'm tired of mixing medicine with the food. I'm tired of playing that game. Now I'm shoving straight medicine down your fucking throat, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Straight doses of medicine and then shove down your throat. I don't give a fuck if it turns you off or not. But if it do turn you off, then you're stupid, ignorant motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
Don't judge like a cover of your favorite book. Visit you in your dreams hand with the hook. Paralysis overtook. So shook, stop, look, listen with precision. MC on a mission, vision, past senses and endless. Cypher with active Moors, beat you with facts senseless. Have your mind defenseless when the truth enters. Eyes glow, reminds me of Omar Bay, Algonquin embers. Tap your pioneer out what some man remembers. All the lies told to your mind dismembers. Circle broken into quadrants, either 7 in the center, compass G between the square. Baphomet of Templars, Warlock, call on my witch mothers to maim them. The same wise spirit burned at stakes in Salem. Torture with vagina pair, survive, bobbing for apples. Contort thumb, slide wrist out, tight shackles.
I always got something deep to say. Every time around. I always got something deep to say. Every time around. I always got something deep to say. Every time around. I always got something deep to say. Every time around.
As he walked past the city's castle, he interrupted his return and climbed the stone ramp that led to the top of the wall. From there, he could see Africa in the distance. Someone had once told him that it was from there the Moors had come to occupy all of Spain.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy. 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 Crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy.
What you looking up for, God? I'm talking to you. Weed smelling like dead bodies, loving a shoot. Baby goats popping out for government checks. To the honorable moms, no disrespect. I'm not talking about the matriarch, but what the deadbeat dad, fake comrade, two-faced nigga, stab you in your back multiple times. Homicide and manslaughter, a friendship on the rise. Watch the gods with pseudo doctrines, big shades. I stay back and listen to old school stay sane. Around the garden, always have a bag of crystals in demons' faces. Amethyst missiles, dirty Study more, teach the factors will make you officials. When study is beneficial.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy. Crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy. Crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy. Crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy.
Enslaved by your own, didn't listen to prophet. Now you're living in sin. One but can't stop it. You made your bed, lay down. Now you sleep standing. Notwithstanding in a dead status, birthright abandoned. Rather stay dirty instead of turning your card in. Then take your fares off if you're not turning your card in.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. The gods must be crazy.
So it's gonna get you rich. What? What? I'm rocking. Who says we ain't in the building? Who says we ain't into building? We the Moorish master masons, architects for your children, rapping Friday 30s like Jason, without the killing. But we promote life, oh, it's all about the feeling. And we invoke life, yo, we them light beings. Though you might see him on the block getting this posture, might be talking to cops, giving them caution, occasionally wearing his vest when he's walking, see the turning heads, whispering gawking, but he's locked in and he's zoned out while we boxed in our own house.
Study the mystics, the adepts, the magi, wisdom of the ancients can all calcify eyes. Possible mission, free mental numbness, extract the substance, rid minds of darkness. Use the source, don't care what some purport, as we know by being told man knows not. Many before the floor, souls got caught, placed in the devil's hands, ruled in the seven lands. To dogma rituals, Negro spirituals, brainwash subliminal, keeps thinking to a minimal. It's still criminal, in a world digital so pitiful. Mental survival so critical, it's visible. Can you see past righteous block? Hashtag zombies with waves of cyberpunk. No need for cell phones, they speak through soft arms. It's nothing for alarm, chips and forearms.
Wind, brass, and bass, such a beautiful serenade. Women feeding me grapes, I'm feeding the interrelate. Whether the sky is clear or gray, rain when you hear it fake, giving life to see. Speaking through who not here today. Show you the future in a glance. Then I always look to these holes like hallucinatory games. Sun walked the desert, been more of a since I found God. Look back, used to see his friends. Forget being a prince, I'm a G. OD, grown man, no jokey, deny it, you don't know me. Don't make me tap into the old me. That's like a couple hundred years. Walk around town with a couple hundred peers and release the peace of fears. The sun gon' shine, so what tears? This young brother here just trying to get his third eye clear.
This deep. Moors don't sleep, invest in your mind, body, and unleash. Real life rap, spitting over tracks, conscious thinking and living and then attack. This deep. Moors don't sleep, invest in your mind, body, and unleash. Real life rap, spitting over tracks, conscious thinking and living and then attack.
So as the moon sets, the sun takes its place and spoons on blocks, inspired spots, fill spaces, peel back, rats, who got cases, fire stain the corridors of flemo faces, game changers, rule benders and no pretenders, style benders, channel my vibe through the vibe with optic lenses, send a message to our veterans, soldiers up and get it in, we on our birds, we are merged, subliminal beings, third eye seeing, still I participate unwilling.
They wanna break me, shake, break me, toiling with my name G, double O-N-G, S-O-N is crazy, for a minute that you think you could take me for a fool like a native to his land, being schooled by a foreign dude, you mistaken me, spiders on the roof, in the dark rooms, I be saying you mistaken me, you better move or I mark it, power pin is my tongue, to resistance to target, revealing all lies and deceit on the market, genocide, carry out in pockets, I knock it, down bulldozer, David to Goliath, it's an exposure, some big heads ruling and it's getting closer, to your downfall, round up on your soldiers.
Little homie, I was seeking a fortune, tired of misfortune. I just wanted a portion, everything that I never had, though I needed my portion. Blowing like porcelain, haters dragging the porcelain. Dead broke, tired of being broke. How we acquire hope and the teachers still as we go, just to keep us afloat. Might as deep as the boat, brain is the lethal weapon we want need to below. When I speak, I provoke.
Rocking the room in my aura, feeling like heavy smoke. Feel like when they let me roll under my Louis fitted to send me pump. Cause then we capture the king of boy, yeah, the joke. The cost of living, higher profits and private printing. These little girls are sunny bodies just to pay tuition. These little niggas sunny niggas just to build condition. It's like the snake, they never end the prison in the mission. I wanna free the world, but I'm one man. A couple ones like me, let me one plan. I wanna free the world, but I'm one man. A couple ones like me, one plan. You gotta do your part. You can't help the world when you're playing around and race games saying you're black but you're really brown. Do it only for self. Mama Earth needs help. Grandma's church, even DTs need help. What can you do? Don't worry about me. Hey, you got life's chores cause I ain't you free. Been doing my part, building the mental arc for the Aquarian age before it start. Ask Prince Ali Mel Bay and Sister Zakina. He brought him to Toronto to wake up the sleeper. If you think not, you better go at Star the Grip. Who's giving to you? The pop shot was a lift. Bobby Hemmett came too. So did Boyd Gray. Respect and love you, though you died from AIDS. Just rent a library room. Don't cry for space. Who's gonna help the world? We can't escape the space. Most are conscious, but not cognizant. Won't stick up a pork chop but rob his act. When it's time to help the world, all I hear is can't. Many of y'all are coming back as birds and ants. Trust me, I study the Buddhists and Brahmin shamans. Help the world by activating iron carbon, DMT dripping like a leaky faucet. I help the world when I sleep, no need to force it. Just doing my best even when doing my reps. Help the world sleeping or taking my steps. When I'm wearing a fez, nationals breaking their necks to witness the Renaissance. Staring in a trance, I do so much and willing to do more. Don't believe me, ask the youth from Palmer Court, ask the youth from Malvern and hear what they say. Ask the youth from Rexdale or ACHA. Yeah. My lyrical hang time's worse than the Willie Lynch curse. Cause I'm not coming down till I finish this verse. Demons disperse till I'm fight curve. Eat dirt till my feet hurt. Ashes to ashes, soon return to the earth. Stand for better and redirect the worst. Drop some knowledge on a dime beat to quench your thirst. Thanks to sus, we remain in the game with a torch high. I ain't checking up another track, don't ask for why. It's time to feed a rapper to the fire, kick and scream. The same way a spirit does when you steal a dream. The more we want for something, less it is for us and we. Minimal I and the spilling community. The temperature rise now, the ice age melts away. Prophesize my KRS One, these are the times and days. This is the cycle that I missed cause I was too young to jump in. Now I got enough artillery to keep dumping. Fire Marshal Ho Chi Minh, let me show you something. Duck for cover, just can't stop flying, stagger like you're drunken. We got aces down here, so keep the ones flunking. Bitch slap a whack rapper like you need some pumpkin. Ho Chi Kutcher, fucking call me Simon Butcher. Commercial rapper, decapitated envelope pusher. Rapper inquisition, feed them to the fire. Lead them to the heat and watch the flame raise higher. Picture painted, but the spirit not tainted. See us in a pheasant fall back like it painted. Feels like we've been here from the ancient. Experience so much challenges to build my patience.